Here in Winchester. Thank you. We're recording this so that we can post this presentation on the town's website at a later time. So thank you all for joining us this evening. We're here to talk about a project that is just in the design phase at this point to make some improvements to the town center, specifically the area on Main Street between the Rotary and the Center Falls Dam, the Rotary itself, and then some improvements at the intersection of Waterfield Road and Thompson Street. This effort came from a concept level study that was done a couple years ago, and the presentations were given to the select board, and we were the very lucky recipient of a $500,000 earmark to take this project from that concept phase through final design. So we are still in the process, I would say in the relatively early design phase, but we're looking to get some feedback from the community. We've had several outreach meetings with business owners and Chamber of Commerce members and other boards and committees and other interested parties to solicit feedback. We've also had some information available at Town Day regarding this project. So we're here this evening to get some public feedback before we go to the select board later this summer or fall and ask the board to make a decision on kind of final design direction so that we can move into the next phase of design. So with that, I'll turn it over to Karen Fitzgerald, who is here from Tool Design Group. They are working with us to put together the draft concept plan and move into the next phase of design. Thank you.
Evening, everyone. Thank you all for taking part of your evening to get some information about this project. As Beth mentioned, I'm Karen Fitzgerald. I'm the project manager with Tool Design for this effort. I also have with me Dan McCormick and Krithika Mohan, who's on our design team. I'm going to go through the slides, and there's a lot of info here, but as Beth mentioned, we're in the preliminary stages of design, so all questions and comments are welcome. Just a quick agenda overview, intros, and project overview. Then I will walk through the design. We've sort of divided it up into 3 different areas of town. The Rotary, Main Street, and then a small area on Waterfield and Thompson Triangle. Talk about what we've done. Beth sort of outlined our outreach efforts so far, and then questions. So experience downtown Winchester, we've seen a lot of changes through the years. Most impactful has been the train elevation, the train track elevation. But the center has really managed to retain its character and beauty. And the last sort of facelift was in 1982. So that was over 30 years ago. And this project is really looking at, the next iteration or revitalization of the downtown. There we go. So why are we doing this project? There are several reasons, but we want to make sure that we're supporting the local businesses and really looking towards economic development for the businesses downtown and surrounding area, economic growth. Definitely going to pay attention to the preservation of historic items, buildings, and the heritage of Winchester. It's a beautiful historic downtown. There's a lot of things to really treasure there. And then just hoping this brings together the community. We're looking to create some new spaces that will bring people down to really just enjoy the downtown. And infrastructure improvement. So that includes the streets and the sidewalks, but also looking at possible other infrastructure that might need some work as we go through the project. So our goals are safety, number 1, really looking at a lot of safety improvements for both people walking, people biking, and people driving. Quality of life, which includes sort of the walkability, accessibility, comfort, health, and there's looking forward to resilience, economic development that I mentioned, and then mobility. Basically making sure that everyone, regardless of age, ability, equity, can move through the space and really enjoy downtown. So as I mentioned, the project area, we kind of think of it in 3 different subsets. The first is the Rotary, the second is Main Street, and then the small area at the intersection of Thompson and Waterfield, we call it the Triangle. And we're looking at streetscape and engineering design for the sidewalks, roadways, and crossings. Really paying attention to street trees and other plantings, furnishings and materials. Lighting will be an important piece of this, and we are doing a tree assessment that will help inform design of the streetscape. In 2022, we created a concept plan. It's called the Downtown Action and Improvement Plan. And that was really very high level concepts, looking at what could be done and addressed as far as safety goes, and also beautification of downtown. Traffic calming was foremost, pedestrian safety, placemaking, opportunities for interpretive signage, seating areas, possible spaces for public art, and then paying attention to parking. I know that's very important for the downtown businesses, and trying to preserve as much parking as possible. So Quill Rotary first. During our previous planning study, we walked through the downtown with a group of sort of our committee, which included folks from downtown businesses, the planning board, and other committees, both the engineering department and the DPW, and really tried to pinpoint some of the issues that we saw throughout the area. Traffic calming within the Rotary was definitely apparent, and number 1 on the list, but also the pedestrian safety. They kind of go hand in hand. So anytime you slow down the traffic, you're increasing safety for people walking and trying to cross the street there. And that seemed to be a real issue in this area. We want to look at shortening the crossings for people crossing the distance, better visibility so vehicles can see people trying to cross the street, and then possible any future bicycle accommodation, and delivery and pickup under this bridge is also something that happens often. So we're trying to accommodate that as well. Concept plan that we have been working from and improving as we're going into this design phase. Extend sidewalks. So you'll see in this drawing, the pink color is the sidewalk area, where we have really pulled in that curb to narrow driving lanes, keeping it a safe driving lane width, but also trying to narrow that down to slow people down as they come into the Rotary and make their way around the Rotary. So we are looking at both geometric changes and also material changes that would really, have the appearance of sort of narrower space and give drivers the perception that they really need to slow down and people are crossing and walking in this area. Sidewalk expansions at the corners and intersections. And we also understand that the current geometry really is unclear in a couple spaces, particularly at the Mount Vernon intersection. Vehicles sometimes make the mistake of going the wrong way around the Rotary. So we're really looking at improving that area. And also coming off of Church Street, that light seems to be a place of confusion for both pedestrians and vehicles. So that's another spot that we are concentrating on, and really trying to make this place where it's safe for everyone and get cars to slow down as they're entering the downtown area. Main Street, Main Street is another big central, part of our design. And right now, the existing travel lanes of where the vehicles travel are at least 14 feet wide, and that is very wide standard, or it's not a standard, it's very wide exceeding standards. So we are looking at narrowing that down to 11 feet, which would give us space to expand the sidewalks, which are quite narrow in places, and really sort of shift the outdoor dining and other sort of outdoor retail activities onto the sidewalk, but also preserve the parking at the same time. And the brick paving seems to be an issue now. It is heaving in places. This particular type of brick has a tendency to do that. So we will be looking at, I think, preserving brick as a material, but a different type of brick that really locks together and doesn't cause sort of these trip hazards that you see throughout Main Street. And then looking at the crossing, the Main Street crossings, trying to make those safer, narrower, shorter distance from one side to the other, and just better visibility for people trying to cross the street. We also will talk about this in a few slides, the connection for the bicycles from the Tri-Community Greenway. And then there are some important accessibility upgrades at crossings, just meeting the most recent guidelines for accessibility that includes pedestrian crossings, ramps, and also parking spaces as well. This is the concept plan from the 2022 study. Again, you'll see the pink areas are the new sidewalk areas. I'm going to talk about street trees quite a bit in a couple of minutes. This crossing here at Thompson and Main is really important to make sure that's safe there. We're looking at a raised crossing there. Also, these crossings at the bridge and Converse Way are also a place where there's a lot of activity going on back and forth. And then just expanding these sidewalks, but yet keeping that parking area, which is important to talk about quite a bit here, and we can get into counts as we move through this presentation. The other aspect that we're looking at is expanding these seating areas here and providing sort of an overlook at the mill pond for both ends, and those are in concept stages as well. We have a couple examples of what that might look like here, sort of a boardwalk overlook using sort of natural materials, and that's really in the very beginning stages of concept design right now. We do want to kind of bring in the Abergona as a feature and look at interpretive signage there. So that's a really fun aspect of this project. Okay, Main Street Alternate 1, we're calling this, and it's all about the trees here. So Alternate 1 is trying to retain the existing trees. Now, these trees were planted in 1982, so they're getting over 30 years old. It is a question of the health of the trees, and also sort of would they survive construction, but also are they just getting to the end of their life cycle? And these trees that are planted in these urban areas, conditions were provided a very small root zone area And that's why we're seeing some of them, if you look carefully, see some of the roots coming up, heaving the tree grates, and also heaving the sidewalk. So this is, I understand the tree canopy is big and beautiful, and it's kind of hard to easily make this decision. But we wanted to just look at what this would look like if we decide to keep these trees. We do have an arborist studying these trees, and we did recently get their first tree assessment just last week. So we do have some more information on this. This is sort of a rendering showing you what existing trees would look like with the new curb extensions. That's showing curbs out here. So sidewalks up against the building would remain about the same width. Space would be added outside of the tree zone here. And then crossings and curb extensions at the crosswalk. This is looking from the Rotary towards Mystic Valley Parkway, this view. And then in cross section, again, if we kept trees, they would remain where they are. Most of the space gain would be on the outside of those that tree zone. And then you see the lanes here are 11 feet with an 8-foot parking space. Alternate 2 is to remove all of the existing trees and plant new ones. And this would enable us to provide more trees, and then also vary the tree species, which is a good idea these days, to guarantee that you don't lose all of the type of trees if there is some kind of pest or some kind of disease that comes through that we've seen in recent years. We would also use new methods of planting, which allows a much bigger root zone under the sidewalk. And that's a big plus for trees in these urban conditions. The root zones really need a much larger space, so healthier trees going forward by providing that root zone under the sidewalk. Also, trees would be moved towards the new curb edge, so giving more space to the sidewalk between the building and this tree zone. And that would allow for just, wider spaces for walking, seating areas, also lighting and other benches, bike racks, etc. This is the view, same view, looking from the Rotary towards the Mystic Valley and the bridge. And the second cross section for this is, sort of a 7.5 or so foot tree zone. You gain an 8-foot space here, which is almost twice or more distance than is there right now. And then these sort of zones in between trees where you could have seating or outdoor dining or outdoor retail. So alternate 3 is sort of our newest alternate, based on the arborist report. They determined that some of the trees are in okay shape. So some of the trees that are along Main Street, sort of the CVS area and the other side of the road, are okay, in good condition. The ones that are, say, at the intersection of Thompson Street, they are not in good condition, so those would be removed. So this alternate really looks at retaining possibly some of them and adding new trees, which kind of results in some interesting spaces. This is a plan view. Again, the same view. So here you can see some of the existing trees still back in this area, but the new trees would be up closer to the curb. So the spaces are varied. I think it could be an interesting, kind of meandering walkway here. But that's yet to be determined, and we're still trying to suss out the best condition and the best way going forward for street trees. Connections to the bikeway and the Tri-Community Greenway was an important consideration here. Let me just flip to the next slide. This is kind of easier to see. So Tri-Community comes in from Ginfield on to the left of the screen. Post office crosses here. We would use the existing path that's there. And then crossing Main Street where the existing crosswalk is, and then connect up to the trail, which then connects to the other side of the greenway. We have also, and the town is working on bike lanes coming from all the way from Sims Corner and beyond on Main Street. So this connection suddenly becomes important as well. So we are now looking at options to provide bike lanes on the bridge here, which would then connect at these sort of red dots. We're calling them mixing zones. And folks could go either way on the greenway, make that connection easy. We did consider, but we did not put bike lanes through Main Street. It was a trade-off between providing more sidewalk space or bike lanes. We couldn't provide both unless we got rid of the parking. So this was the solution to get people to this spot where we would provide bike parking, or you could dismount and walk through Main Street, but you could also just continue on the Tri-Community Greenway easily in either direction at this point. So the cross section that we're really studying right now on the bridge, so this is just on the bridge area, would be retain 8 feet of the existing sidewalk. We would have some kind of tactile warning strip here for folks who have, just as a visibility between the sidewalk pedestrian area and the bike lane, a 5-foot bike lane, and then a 3-foot buffer between the parking and the bike lane for, when people jump out of their cars and doors. And if, folks are on the bike lane, they would have that buffer space there. And the lanes become more narrow here, and the same cross section on the other side of the street. So this is really still in flux. We are looking at different options here. This seems to be what our bike experts at Tool are in favor of. It does protect bikers by putting them on the inside of the parking. It does protect bikers from traffic. So that's the safest possible scenario here. So the third area is Waterfield and Thompson Street triangle. We have looked at a few different options for this area with the new station building and work on this section. This becomes a sort of a new important sort of pedestrian zone, people dropping folks off for the train, but also the end of Thompson, which is very active as well. So one of the goals was to continue a sidewalk through, which doesn't exist today, all the way through this area to connect to the sidewalk that's on the bridge here. So this is the Tri-Community bike coming in, post office is here, up to the right corner, MBTA station on the left side. And then also, provide a safe area for folks to cross over to the station, maybe drop off people going to the train, and also getting through to the parking area that's along the river. So this is sort of our latest design. We would have curb extensions at the end of Thompson to make that a safe crossing there. Provide a loading space on the other side for trucks loading for the Thompson Street retail. Provide that cross that sidewalk all the way through to Mystic Valley, and then a safer crossing for the folks at the Tri-Community Greenway, biking or walking, and then a walkway also that leads folks to Greenfield, but also to the train station. So this is another spot that needed a little bit of looking at. We also had our arborists look at the trees here. There's a couple that are in okay shape, but not all of them. So we're using that information as we go forward with this design. Excuse me. Whoops. So materials are going to be really important. We are not at the stage of selecting materials, but keeping with the character of downtown, we're thinking brick is going to be the choice, but we can also look at integrating some other materials. Here we're showing some granite examples, some different pavers, and just varying that to delineate zones along Main Street, say the tree zone or seating areas, etc. So that's a materials palette is still being created, and we'd love any input that you have on that. I mentioned the tree planting options. So we'd really like to include what we're calling a treatway or stormwater tree pit system that expands that road zone under the sidewalk. There are a couple different ways you can do this, and we're looking into all of those designs, whether it's a structural soil cells, that kind of thing. You can see down at the bottom with the trees and the overhead canopy, that's a photograph of the Boston City Plaza. All of this brick area is on structural soil. These trees are planted beneath that and come up through the brick. But this is a pervious paving, brick paving here. So the water infiltrates into the tree root zone and the trees are happy underneath. And it is still a very walkable and safe area here for pedestrians. So a lot of great examples of that, and we are studying that to use in this project. So quickly, just looking at our outreach and engagement plan, we've met, as Beth sort of reiterated, we met with the Chamber of Commerce. We had a table at the town voting in the high school. We've met with town boards and committees so far, downtown merchants and business owners. We did have an opportunity to meet with the fire department recently, and this is our online public forum. There was some information at Town Day as well, and we're planning on having a spot somewhere downtown. We call it Ask the Designer, sort of open office hours, where folks could just drop in, look at plans and ask questions. That hasn't been scheduled yet, but that's sort of something coming up in the summer months. So it's a lot of information, a lot to think about. Happy to take questions. Krithika will, if you have a question, just use your raised hand or put it in the chat, and love to hear from you. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . I should say this is all on the town website as well, so a lot of information will be there.
Karen, looks like you have a question with John Stevens.
Okay. Let's see. Can you, I don't have control.
Oh, John, you're unmuted, so feel free to ask your question.
All right, thank you. The question I have is what Tool has done to study areas surrounding the downtown area proposed for change. I live on Vine Street. My particular concern is that traffic headed south on Main Street already cuts through Vine. When it wants to get to church, people want to get to church in a hurry, and they don't want to go through the rotary, which is slow and dangerous. My belief, my strong suspicion is that the improvements that are suggested are going to slow traffic further at the rotary, and people will therefore be more inclined to turn right between 666 Main and Fells Hardware, then turn left at the top of the hill, go all the way to the end of the UCC, turn left again to go past the bank, and then they get to turn right onto Church, and they completely avoid the rotary. And so I wonder whether Tool has studied that and what they found. If they haven't, I ask whether they're going to study that.
Yeah, that's interesting. We haven't heard that. We haven't studied that. It wasn't part of the original project, but it's an interesting comment. I haven't heard that from folks, but I think we should talk about it with the project team.
The thing I would add is that I've already seen this when the North Suburban school buses at one point last fall or late in the spring, I don't recall which, started coming up Vine Street and proceeding at a rapid pace, well in excess of what I think is safe for the street. And there were a whole string of them, 4 or 5, maybe 6. And one day I just stepped out, asked them to stop, spoke to the drivers, and after that, North Suburban did not run through Vine Street that way. I guess they went back to the rotary. So it does happen.
Huh, okay. Great, noted. We are definitely taking notes, so that's good to know.
Question?
Yes.
Hi, I'd like to raise a different concern. Now that I have become an older resident of town, I have become more conscious of the status of the brick sidewalks. And speaking with other older residents, people are quite concerned about the safety and the increasing unevenness of the brick on the sidewalks downtown. In fact, I know several people, somewhat older than I am, who just won't try to walk downtown at all because they're afraid they may fall on the uneven brick sidewalks. And I didn't really hear that anybody is planning to address the sidewalks per se. But I think if you want to encourage people to use the downtown area, not just the elderly, but also people with strollers, the unevenness of the brick sidewalks needs to be reduced.
Absolutely, the sidewalks are definitely a focus of the project. So I think I talked a little bit about the brick. That particular type of brick used all over the place. It does have the tendency to lift because of its unevenness as a brick. So we will definitely be focusing on new materials for the sidewalk, making sure it's not a trip hazard, and using a different type of brick. If we go with brick, it will be more regularly manufactured brick that's able to just lock in tighter and not create those uneven surfaces.
Yeah, and some of the worst spots are where the trees have grown up and the roots are poking through the bricks.
Right. So the giving the tree roots space to spread out underneath will help to keep, so what the tree roots are doing when they heave the sidewalk is they're looking for water and air. They're like reaching towards what, they can sense oxygen. So they're reaching towards the surface because of the constrained box that they're in. So if you provide water and air beneath the sidewalk, they should be happier and stay within that road zone area. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Some comments, and questions in the chat. I don't know if you want to go through those.
Sure. Let me see. Concerns from, okay, I don't see concerns from business addressed here.
So we had a meeting maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, with several of the downtown businesses, in addition to a separate meeting that we had with the chamber. The businesses did review some of their concerns, specifically with loss of parking, some of the questions I've seen here about larger delivery trucks. So we, this obviously isn't the final design, and we're happy to take kind of those questions and comments into consideration as Tool kind of refines things. Karen, I don't know if you want to make any
Yeah.
other additional comments.
Yeah, I didn't point out, but we are looking at delivery truck areas under the bridge and under the Rotary Bridge, end of Thompson Street, specifically for loading of those bigger trucks. And also the parking, we are, as you know, we're not in the final design, but we are really trying to minimize any parking loss. We're along Main Street, we are coming out even, so there are same amount of parking spaces on Main. Places where we might be losing some parking is Converse, and we're also still looking at the Waterfield Thompson intersection there for parking as well. So really trying to minimize any kind of parking loss there.
I think Heidi I saw somewhere in here that she couldn't raise her hand. So Heidi, if you want to speak, you can just unmute yourself.
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, having a problem with my Zoom. So the businesses had a lot of concerns. It wasn't just about the delivery trucks. There were some, I'm voicing some concerns that were brought up. I don't necessarily have all of the concerns, but they want to make sure it's addressed. There's concern that widening the sidewalk is going to cause some other issues because people tend to double park a lot. Where are they going to go if they want to get coffee? And there's a congestion in the area of Starbucks to begin with. Yes, there needs to be more loading zones, not just at the end of Thompson and Waterfield. A lot of times there needs to be a delivery area on Main Street. The businesses overall were not in favor of this plan. They would like to see it redesigned with the areas of expansion of the sidewalks, primarily at the intersections and at the bridge on the waterfall. They do not want to see expansion of the sidewalks along the majority of Main Street. They feel that, well, some people felt like it was a waste of money, but they feel the sidewalks are wide enough as it is. And the only reason to do this at this point would be to accommodate 1 or 2 restaurants that are on Main Street at this point. Retail businesses in general are having a very difficult time, could be in part because of the train construction as well. But the main concerns about the businesses downtown were about parking and about retail, and some focus on retail, not just on dining.
Karen, there's a few other questions in the chat, so maybe we can run through those and then jump to the next person with their hand raised. So there's a question: is the plan to eliminate the drive-through mailbox?
That is still, we're still looking at that. In the current plan, it's not necessary to remove it. So we understand that's an item that people are concerned about. We're still considering the mailbox drop off.
The next question is, why is Mount Vernon Street not included in this plan? So this design kind of stems from that initial sort of working group and concept plan that was put together, I guess maybe starting in, was it maybe late 2021 and then into 2022. And that kind of coalesced around this concept plan. We've talked about the limited ability to kind of widen the sidewalks on Mount Vernon Street itself, but certainly we are trying to make the intersection with Mount Vernon Street and the Rotary safer by improving the bump outs there and adding a little bit more space for pedestrians at those corners. And then also working to ensure that traffic is moving in the right direction around the Rotary as opposed to in the wrong direction, which I think probably most of us have witnessed on at least one occasion. The next question is, or comment, I guess, was I would like to see traffic calming continued on Main Street from the Rotary to Skilling's Lake Street intersection. So at this point, that would be out of the scope of this project. I think, obviously, the town would like to do what it can to improve pedestrian safety throughout the town center. So that, you know, certainly something we can look at as part of a future project. Next comment was about Lexington having done this recently. So I don't know,
Yeah.
Karen, if you want to comment at all about kind of the
Yeah,
work.
yeah. Sure. We know the folks who did the Lexington. We understand that they used some underground, what they call silver cells for stormwater, and you know, we've been talking with those folks, and also their construction manager. So we are in touch with Lexington on this, and they actually, if you get a chance to go there, they have this sort of what we call wire cut brick, what they used in their whole downtown area, and you can kind of see the difference between the Winchester sidewalks and this type of brick there. It's a good example.
The next question or comment is about large trucks who routinely go through the Rotary, and I assume, Karen, you guys will be
Yeah,
making sure that any auto turns that we do include those large
Yeah.
trucks.
yeah, definitely. We have our traffic engineers on that doing the turning radius for large trucks and fire apparatus. So we're making sure that that's safe and easy to do. Yeah.
Next question, which I'll take, it says, is the earmark for this project solely for design? Yes, it is. So like I said, we're very grateful to receive a $500,000 earmark from the state for the design work for this project. We do not currently have a funding source for construction identified. We have not gotten to the cost estimate stage, but I'm gonna guess it's $8 to $12 million range, just based on what I know the Lexington project was, which was done a few years ago. So obviously it's a significant project, and you know, the select board and other stakeholders will be working to identify what possible funding sources are. And then also, I think the project is designed in such a way that we could probably break it out into a few smaller projects if we weren't able to fund one large construction project in total. So that's certainly something that we'll talk about as we get through the design. A comment about Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, downtown renovation of their sidewalks many years ago was done with concrete sidewalks and brick at the curbside. Just having the difficulty with the pavers or brick surface. So that's certainly something that is very much in the forethought of our mind as Tool has been working on this design. There's a comment about concern about the narrowing of Thompson Street. Your cross sections scared me, but I think your car's out of scale, but a few people park too tight to the curb as your section shows. So I don't know, Karen, if you want to comment on that design at all.
Narrowing of Thompson Street. I don't think we're narrowing Thompson Street at all. I'm not sure.
The intersection with Waterfield, I think, is it coming in a little bit?
Just the corners and just sort of where we're not narrowing it any more than it is. We're pulling out the corners there where, you know, parking's already out at that distance. So we're trying to just make those crossings safer at the ends of Thompson, but we're not actually narrowing that travel way. We are pulling out those intersection corners though.
Is it possible to provide a design that does not include the widening of all Main Street? And I think by that you mean the sidewalk. So that's certainly something that we could do. This concept study was very much, you know, this original concept study was brought to the board and was sort of endorsed by the board as kind of something that we wanted to move forward with into the next phase of design. But certainly if the select board decided at some point that they did not want to widen the sidewalks there, I think we could keep the traffic calming measures like the crosswalk improvements and other things. Karen, if you agree with that.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits of the wider sidewalks is just providing more seating and also preserving all of the parking that's currently taken up by some of the restaurant outdoor dining. So with the wider sidewalks, that would happen on the sidewalk and all of the parking would exist during the summer. So that was one of the bigger sort of goals of this project. The wider, you know, just to be clear, widening the sidewalk doesn't affect both parking or the lanes. I mean, 11-foot lane is a standard width for any lane that you'll drive on throughout town. So it only just benefits pedestrians and people, you know, wanting to mingle around downtown. Yeah.
Whether it's used part of the project, it does provide additional space for people to gather outside the town center, and there would be seating, permanent street seating included. That isn't just dedicated for our dining space in those areas.
Right.
Next question, it says across the bridge, why is it necessary to have 2 bike lanes? Are they one way?
Yeah. Yes, so that's one way each direction. And what you know, what we're doing in the town is trying to connect their bicycle facilities. So there are bike facilities designed or coming on Main Street going south. And then the Tri-Community Bikeway obviously is another wonderful pathway that is shared use for bikes and pedestrians. So this provides a connection for those 2 really important biking facilities through town. And we, you know, at Tool Design, we design a lot of bike facilities throughout the country. So we are really using best practices and safety measures for looking at that design. So it would be 1 lane in each direction.
Next question is there a material to use for sidewalks that is porous or installed to help absorb short, heavy rainfalls, which seem to be increasing?
Yes, so we are definitely looking at pervious paving. There is pervious paving that's also ADA approved in these today, which is great. So we are looking at using pervious paving within the tree zone. So that would both help the trees and also collect some of the runoff on the sidewalk area. All connect, you know, that would all be connected into a bigger drainage system.
Follow-up question, will the number of handicap parking spaces stay the same?
Yeah, so we are looking at using the new, what they call PROAG guidelines for handicap parking, but we are definitely keeping the same handicap parking number of spaces, basically where they are today, with the exception of the post office area. Just looking at that, the ramp for the post office is actually on Thompson Street. So it seemed to us that it would be logical to put the handicap parking space near the ramp for the use of that ramp instead of on Waterfield, but that's still something that we're looking at. But we're not removing any handicap parking space. We are keeping them where they are today.
Thanks, Karen. Just a comment to look at the visibility of signage, particularly at the Rotary, which I think we've been challenged. As many signs as we put up seem to never be enough. So I think the geometric changes that have been proposed at the Rotary will certainly help some of the issues we've had there.
Yeah.
Another concern about the bike lanes, which I think we've addressed.
Mhm.
And then a question about adding bike lanes on Main Street from the Rotary train station that connects to the Horn Pond Brook Bikeway. So I think that's a good comment outside of the scope of this project, but certainly something that we can look at long term. And then just the last comment, we'll go over to the folks who have their hand raised. I understand that the loading, unloading zones will be moved. Would the town then prohibit deliveries on Main Street? Currently, there are frequent traffic blocking deliveries during the day. So I don't know if you want to comment any further on the loading, unloading zones.
Yeah,
Karen.
I mean, we're planning on providing, designated loading and unloading spaces. How exactly that is policed is another question. I understand that trucks actually have been down there when trucks just double park and do their unloading right on Main Street. I'm not sure that that's a management question, and something that we've talked to some of the business owners about how best to manage that. So, I mean, I don't how you make sure that your deliveries are, your delivery trucks are parked in the loading zones is sort of beyond my expertise, but that is something that should be looked at.
Next question is the timeline. How long do you
Yeah.
expect the project to take? So, like I said, we don't have funding for construction for this project, so I can't say what the timeline is for it to start, but overall construction duration. Karen, I don't know if you have any kind of very early thoughts about what the duration of a project like this might take if we were to do it all together as one project.
Yeah, if we did everything, it could be a couple seasons of construction, but we also are, as we're going through the design, considering a phased approach, which is possible right now. So it really depends on how we end up wanting to either, if there's enough funding to do everything, or if we need to phase this in, possibly doing the Rotary, doing Main Street at a different time. So that's all something that we're talking about and looking at as we go forward in finalizing this design. But I would give it, if we could get everything done, I would say it's probably mostly within a year, and then some of the finish work in the next season. Downtown is many bike lanes, floating parking bridge.
Okay, do you want to go to the folks who have their hand raised? I don't
Yeah.
know who's controlling
I think Matthew had his hand up first.
Yes, thanks. It's really a beautiful center. I've lived here a long time and I've always admired it, and it's kind of drawn me to the town over 20 years ago. And it does have problems, and I think you've really correctly identified them. It's not pedestrian friendly. The cars go way too fast. The
Mhm.
sidewalks are narrow. The street trees that we love make them even narrower, in effect, when you're going one way and someone's coming the other way, and that's even magnified when someone's pushing a stroller or something. So everything you've identified, I think, is really much needed and sorely needed. And it's been over 40 years since we made an improvement, a pedestrian improvement, really, to our downtown that was substantive, which were the brick sidewalks and the granite and brick crosswalks, which have been since lost. But those were in effect a little bit of traffic calming. You know, the raised rough granite surface kind of slowed cars down as they entered the center. So I
Sure.
think you're hitting on all the right notes here. I'm really excited about it
Great.
as a resident of the town and essentially right in the center. And I think those wide sidewalks are really necessary. I know some people were questioning that. But if you think about the one place in the town where people kind of love to sit and hang out and not just hurry along, it's the one place where we did widen that in the 80s, right in front of what's now Starbucks and right across the street. And that's really the only place, one of the only places you can actually sit down and enjoy the center as opposed to hurrying along. And I think, as you correctly pointed out, the street lanes are excessively wide. So they're not only wider than a local road standard, they're wider than the federal highway standard, which, if I recall correctly, is 12, and we have 16.5 feet for travel lanes. So that's almost the gift that enables us to have an appropriately wide travel lane for vehicles, parallel parking, and a generously wide sidewalk where we can sit out, dine, enjoy the center. So I really think this is hitting on all the right notes. I'm very excited about it. My one comment is, although you're doing many, many things to calm traffic once it gets into the center, I think the project or another project would really benefit from calming traffic as it enters the periphery of the town center, because people are really driving in at very high speeds, especially on Church Street and coming south on Main Street. So not relying on the center to do it all, but kind of calming at the edges as people enter, I think would be a really worthwhile effort.
Mhm. Great,
Thanks.
thank you. Kathleen? Can she unmute herself or?
No, I'm sorry. I thought I had.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity for all of us to hear the plans. And like Matthew, I agree that this is something that we should be looking at this point. It was 40 years ago since we did this. I want to piggyback on one of his final comments, and that's about the periphery as it relates to the Rotary. One of the things I have seen over really even more in the last 5 years is the amount of traffic that's on Church Street. And currently, when you come up to the Rotary, if it's possible to have two cars, when you're coming off of Church into the Rotary, you can have a car that goes to the left around the Rotary and one that goes down Main Street. I couldn't tell from your design whether that would still be possible, because if it's not, and cars have to wait for a pedestrian to cross a crosswalk before a car can turn left, we're going to even see more congestion, really backed up on Church Street. So perhaps you could put the design back up of the Rotary so that we could take a look at that. But because I saw it too quickly to have an idea of what the plan really is in this regard.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so the plan is to really keep it down to one lane, calm down that traffic, because I think this is where I've seen that too, where two cars end up in the Rotary, either coming off of going towards North Main Street and Church Street. So we're really trying to calm the traffic down here, make sure the cars can go slowly through here, make sure they see people trying to cross the street. This Church Street crossing is a safety issue. this crossing, I myself have almost been hit here at Main Street. And then there have been other problems on the other side of Main Street, on the north side. So it will not, the plan is not to allow 2 cars. It's not a 2-lane rotary. We are showing this darker gray around the existing curb. That would be what we call a truck apron. It's like a different paving. It's a rough textured paving, would allow the big trucks to make that turn with their rear wheels and an overhang. But it does narrow the lane down for regular vehicles through here. So yeah, we would not be looking at a 2-lane configuration for that rotary. I don't think it's designed to be that way. And I think there's a lot of safety issues with that configuration.
I would just suggest looking at this a little bit more, just in terms of the overall traffic in town.
Okay.
To address the proposal.
So do we have any more hand raised? Folks, no. Just looking at this comment about additional parking, we are not looking at providing additional parking. There's really no space for additional parking within this project area. I think John Stevens asked that question. Church Street, so we're not Waterfield. Oh, okay. That was on. Will there be traffic study? Yeah. Right now, traffic study, a full traffic study is not a part of the project. At this point. I think that's everybody's comment. Yeah. So again, the timing for this, I think, you know, by the time we are through with the design, construction is another few years, 2 or more, depending on funding off. So right now we don't, or the town does not have funding to jump right into construction. So in schedule wise, we'll be through design by beginning of next year, and then construction funding will begin after that. So we're a couple of years away from anything being constructed, at least. Beth, I can't hear you. Yeah.
So I think we've gotten through most of the questions and comments. If you're interested in, you know, sharing this with others, we'll have it up on the town's website under town projects. And then we'll also please share any comments or questions you have. It's the engineering department website, which is on the notice that went out with the meeting flyer for this meeting. Or you can send anything directly to the town manager at townmanager@winchester.us. Anything else from the project team?
I don't think so.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time tonight.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Karen.